This is Duke University.
Please be seated. Good morning. My name's John Gallagher, and I have the privilege of being the Associate Dean for Executive MBA Programs at the Fuqua School of Business. On behalf of everyone at the Fuqua School, I want to welcome all of you to the celebration that is the graduation ceremony of the Global Executive MBA class of 2012. This ceremony marks an important transition point for all of us, for graduates, partners, families, sponsors, faculty, and administration. For 15 months or so, you engaged with us in a partnership, the results of which we're here to celebrate today. For all involved, that partnership has had moments of challenge, moments of triumph, moments of exhaustion, and ultimately a lifetime of reward. It's a partnership that in a very real way changes who we are. Graduates, thank you for your hard work in helping make the global program such a success. There are many people who want to wish you well as you continue your journey, not as students, but as valued alumni of this school. On stage with me are several individuals I'd like to recognize. To my left is Bill Boulding, Dean of the Fuqua School of Business. To his left is our commencement speaker for today's ceremony, Kevin Kelly, Chief Executive Officer at Heidrick & Struggles. In addition, we're honored today to have members of your faculty who have taught and worked closely with you, Jennifer Francis, Alan Lind, and Debu Perawit. But before we move along with this program, I want to recognize 4 groups of people whose assistance has helped make this moment possible. These students have not been alone in their journey. Many of you in the audience today have been instrumental in helping these students achieve their degree. First, we want to express our deep appreciation to the students' supporters, their friends, their families, co-workers, wives, husbands, sons, daughters, parents, supervisors, and partners. We're pleased that you're here today to participate in this celebration because you've been an integral part of this 15-month educational adventure. You demonstrated patience with and tolerance of the seemingly endless workload. You provided the necessary support and encouragement. You picked up more than your share, and you deferred gratification in a host of ways for the sake of your loved one. I know that the graduates gathered here today take as much pride in the personal sacrifices you have made for them as they do in their own educational accomplishments. Graduates, please join me in saying thank you to your supporters with a round of applause. The second group deserving accolades today is the faculty of the Global Executive Program. The faculty is largely responsible for the strong curriculum that shaped the substance of this program, and it's the quality of their teaching and research that contributes substantially to the reputation of the school and the value of the Duke degree. As students, you've worked in partnership with the faculty to create a world-class educational opportunity. Please join me in recognizing your faculty for the tremendous efforts in making this program a success. The third group we would like to recognize are the staff members that have worked closely with you during your time in the program. From the first contact you had with the admissions office to the most recent note you may have received from Melinda, there have been many people along the way that have guided you throughout your time at Fuqua to make sure that you could be here today and celebrate your achievements. They were the ones that made sure all of the details were attended to so that you could focus on your studying. Or they helped bring each region to life through their contacts, expertise, and insights. They've gotten to know you on a personal level, and they're so proud of all that you have achieved. Please join me in recognizing the staff for their outstanding efforts in making this program a success. And next, we represent the student representatives. These students were elected by their classmates to coordinate class activities, represent the class to the faculty and staff, and provide class leadership. They helped organize special events, and they provided input in curriculum and judicial matters for your class and for future classes. They were dedicated to improving the educational experience for this entire class. Representatives, please rise. We'd like to recognize you for your hard work. The Global Executive Class of 2012 has spent many, many hours under the tutelage of the Fuqua faculty. And so now to begin the celebration, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Catherine Bowman McLeod, who will make the presentation of the Excellence in Teaching Award on behalf of the Global Executive Class of 2012.
Good morning. When I made the decision to join this class and be a part of this Gemba 2012 experience. I told many of my friends and family, it's really exciting, but it's like jumping off a cliff and not knowing what's at the bottom. I quickly learned that what's at the bottom is accounting. And it's taught. And it's taught by Jennifer Francis. Jennifer wrapped our class in accounting like we swaddle a baby in a blanket, very snugly. Very snugly. She gave us passion, care, enthusiasm like you can't believe. She showed us the power of accounting, the basics of accounting, and she was invested in our taking it away with us when we leave today. And that will absolutely happen. We had many, many fine instructors and professors in our experience here, but her ability to connect with us, her enthusiasm, her zeal for accounting, and wrapping us all the way around with it from top to bottom, 24 hours a day, it often felt that way, made her stand apart from the others. Please join me in congratulating Dean Jennifer Francis as our class's Teaching Excellent Award recipient. Congratulations. Thank you very much. And here it is.
I'll just be very quick. I just want to say thank you to all of you. You humbled me by giving me this award. I do recognize that accounting being at the bottom, it enables me to soar. And so I appreciate the relativism of that. And I just want to wish all of you so very, very well in your futures. I'm so excited to be here with you. Alan and I are thrilled to have brought you into this program, and we're here to say goodbye, but also to welcome you onto the next stage. So thank you again from all of us and from all of our faculty. Thank you.
Now I'd like to present Cassandra Shepard and Todd Watterson, who have worked with development and alumni relations and their classmates, and now will present Dean Boulding with the class gift.
Dean Boulding, on behalf of Gemba 2012, the most distinguished group of individuals, Farley, I'm going to kill you. You rubbed off on me last night. Last night, John gave me this massive hug, and he's like, I'm not going to cry. You did it to me. You got me. Damn it. On behalf of the most distinguished class that I've ever been a part of, I'm proud and honored by their generosity to present you with our class gift of $92,750. So, there you go, hold on, wait. So we'll close that out, but again, it's been my honor and my pleasure to be your classmate, and I'm humbled by the generosity that you've showed during this process. So again, thank you, and to the future to all of you.
Thank you all so much for this really big check. And the size of the check is phenomenal, but what's even more special to me is the emotion behind it and your willingness to invest in those who will follow you. Thank you so much.
Todd and Cassandra and the entire class, thank you so much for your support. I would now like to introduce the class speaker for the Global Executive Class of 2012, Eric Grigsby.
It says Connor on the floor. I don't think that's my name. Good morning, everybody. Might as well settle in for the next 45 minutes or so. This reminds me, it's a little warm in here this morning, and they said the air conditioning wasn't on, and I have to relate a little story. My wife, our children went to a parochial school back in Napa Valley. We had plenty of that at these days. And I remember we were in church one morning, and we had the choraleers group, and the choraleers were the singing group of 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds. She's a good singer. Got a future. She has a future. And we were watching the choraleers, and they were belting it out, and there was this one little girl on the corner, and they had on big velvet robes, and the air conditioning in the church wasn't quite working, like as usual. And on cue, she belted out the last note, and then just fell down on the ground, out. Luckily, there were myself and anesthesiologist, so you want in the crowd. If somebody's down, you want me in the crowd? So we picked the poor girl up, but I thought about that. If I go down, Cassandra, can you help me? And maybe Todd. I don't know. Farley, you stay where you are. Okay. He's gotten too much airtime already, I have to say. So good morning. I really thank you for the opportunity to be up here. You know, the respect of your peers and colleagues is really the highest compliment that you can receive, and it's been a great last week together here. Living in the Thomas Center brought back a lot of really good memories of the first couple of weeks, and then sort of a really not very good memory of the accounting midterm. Sorry, Jennifer. And as many of you know, I had the pleasure of going through this program with my bride, Mary Roca. So Mary, thank you very much for putting up with me wherever you are. I found the R's. Oh, right in the middle. Thank you very much. It has been more of a challenge even than the usual marital bliss. So we learned a lot of things. We learned that our dining room turned into study hall with printers and hole punchers, you know, for 50 hole punching and staplers and various things like that. We also learned that the Fuqua Honor Code supersedes even your marital vows. That's important. Yeah, thank you, Dean Boulding. I just want to make sure you know we're aware of that. So over the last year, we've really had the privilege of traveling the world with some of the present and future business leaders, a fantastic group of people. And I was brought back to the very first week that I was at the Thomas Center last year, and the first person I met was Christy Toms. There she is. Christy's smart, polished, young, very young. It's been a long time since I've been in school, and I thought to myself, man, if this is going to be the way it is, if this is the caliber of the students here in our class, you know, this is going to be a real challenge. But luckily then I met John and Ryan and Colin, and I felt a whole lot better. I felt a whole lot better about things. But it's really a special pleasure to especially see all the friends and family. You know, we've had an incredible year and a half, and it's been really hard work for us. But we've had the privilege of traveling around and having a lot of great times together, and most of which are documented on the 5,000 photos that Thomas will sell you for a very small amount of money. But finding the balance in life really has been the biggest challenge for all of us. And I know that those of you at home supporting us have had maybe the biggest challenge of all in trying to find that balance and supporting us. And so, as has been said, of course we thank you. My children didn't really sacrifice much as they sit here videotaping me. Actually, they're college age, so they just wanted to make sure the tuition checks kept coming, basically. They did laugh in a very unsympathetic way when I would complain about my accounting homework. But not satisfied just to maintain the status quo, several of our families even added new members during this past year. That's a really huge undertaking. So I want to congratulate a couple. Wilson and Peggy, congratulations, fantastic new addition to your family. Thomas and Sylvia, Colin and Catherine, Woody and Calais, and of course Constantine and Anna are expecting a baby any day. She even took a train down from New York just in case there wasn't an obstetrician on the airplane if she went into labor. So I even have to say that Catherine really exhibited exceptional commitment to Colin, and she had the baby on a schedule so that he could attend the Russia residency without having to take a leave. But not to be outdone, Wilson, just to prepare himself for the stress and rigor of Gemba, decided to have his baby at home with Peggy. So Wilson became an obstetrician. I think he had seen the bill from the obstetrician for the previous time, thought it might be a good break for him. And of course, our lovebirds, Mikhail and Oksana, maybe they'll have a Gemba legacy. Who knows? It could happen. Okay, I told you I was going to tease you. Okay, wherever you are. That's right. I have to say, I did write a version of this speech after one too many glasses of my wife's excellent Cabernet, and I decided against giving it, but I will send it to you on request. So in any event, we've given appreciation to the families, but I would actually like to have all of you guys stand for one moment. All of the families stand up, do a little bit of work here for us one more time so we can appreciate you as we should. Thank you very much for all of your help for us. But again, I want to thank you for this opportunity. And I imagine that when I was asked to do this, as one of the senior members of the class, Rajiv, my apologies, maybe I was more sensible and maybe I would give a pithy and wise admonition to my younger classmates on the balance and integrity and the importance of sharing our collective good fortune rather than tell embarrassing stories from our travels all over the world. So I decided to mix a little good-natured teasing and humor with a couple of serious, if only brief, thoughts. And I apologize to the members of the audience for a couple of cryptic references which will follow. And as our program has progressed, 9 a.m. has become sort of an earlier and earlier time, But I see Anthony here, so it's not all bad. Let's see. Yeah, we're getting used to it. But I know that others of you have been up for hours, really, doing what we do best. Fabio, for example, I'm sure has been up making himself an even more beautiful and charming man. And Colin has already called John Coleman to convince him that tsunamis really do influence the global supply chain. And Michael Calfee has finally convinced Jongmin that Hari is actually 29 years old and that his gray hair is actually a vitamin deficiency. Hari's not here today, so wherever we're videoing, hey Hari, we're on YouTube streaming live. Andre's definitely been out checking on his Maserati for scratches. And Brody, of course, has relived 7 times this morning the winning shot over Nate James in a basketball game. And Kathy and Andrew have undoubtedly been thinking of one last piercing question to ask our graduation speaker just before we're supposed to get out of here. Respectfully. And Hervé, wherever he is, has actually discovered the... Oh, so you knew it was coming. So wherever he is, he's discovered that he's really not from Africa after all. So now to a little bit of a serious moment. This will be hard for me. We're going through this program at a really important time. 16 years ago or so, Blair Shepard and his team set out to create a program which would give young businessmen and women the tools and perspective to become global business leaders of major consequence. And of course, the entrepreneurs in the group and others know how difficult it is to take something from an idea, to make a plan, to have a project, and to have it fly under its own power for a lot of years. But this has obviously been a transition year for Gemba, and we felt it. There have been some significant bumps in the road. But respectfully, and to the leadership, the answer to the challenges of this past year is to simply realize that you have been very successful. You've set out to create a program for accomplished mid-year executives, mid-career executives. And you've been successful. Here we are. But our expectations of this program at every level are very different from the young pups out in the hallway in the other programs. Successful executives demand excellence and no excuses. Administrative excellence like willing help, visas, hotels, communication, and schedules, and most of all, academic excellence. If a professor doesn't live up to the Duke and Fuqua standards, it's pretty simple, guys. Don't have him back. And incentivize your best professors to participate in this, your flagship program. But let me reassure you that the dinner table conversation this past week and all over the past year has been around one simple fact, that this has been an incredible and a transformative experience for all of us. So on behalf of my class, and particularly to Jennifer and Alan, I'd like to thank the administration, the students, the faculty, for really an incredible year. So thank you guys very much. I'm on page 3 of 27. So on a broader level, we've also gone through this program at a time when the world's economy has gone through the biggest downturn in 75 years. And every time you read the paper, every month, every week, there is some place where in agonizing detail, a writer has shown us how the drive for business success has been clouded by greed and bad judgment and self-inurement. In January, for example, the Olympus board were implicated themselves in a $1 billion 20-year embezzlement scheme, and the CEO who exposed it was fired by that same board. In February, the Italian police arrested 4 priests for embezzling money from the Vatican's primary bank. In March, even Hong Kong, sort of free of scandals really, had a scandal where a couple of billionaire executives, real estate developers, had embezzled some money and bribed some local officials. And in April, Walmart's Mexican subsidiary was accused of systematic bribery for permits and zoning and regulatory favors. And in May, the Yahoo CEO was kicked out for padding his resume. I mean, he wasn't even a Gemba grad, for God's sakes. How good can it be? In June, Barclays Bank, just last month, Barclays Bank and others were accused of manipulating the LIBOR rate, which we know now is the basis for more than $350 trillion worth of financial instruments all over the world. And I didn't even mention J.P. Morgan and many others that you're aware of, and for manipulating California energy markets and putting their clients in non-performing mutual funds for high fees. So does that all sound familiar? And July is pretty young. So in difficult and uncertain times, and even times of great peril, some people survive and even thrive. So I want to tell you a little story about a young Irish girl named Nellie Shine. In 1912, Nellie was the youngest daughter of a very poor Irish family from County Cork in Ireland. Her parents had died of sickness and starvation, and she was taken in by her uncle and cousins in a rural Irish community. But it became clear pretty soon that there wasn't enough money to go around, and Nellie was a tough personality at 16 years old. And so they made arrangements for her to be taken in by an uncle in Chicago. So the family pooled their money and they bought Nellie a ticket on the next steamer ship. And on April 10th, 1912, she boarded the RMS Titanic. So at 11:40 p.m. in the middle of the night on April 14th, 4 days into the voyage, the Titanic hit a now very famous iceberg. Water began coming in the ship. Nellie was in third class in steerage, several levels below the deck where there were relatively few lifeboats. But she made it to a lifeboat, and she made it onto America on a rescue ship. And when she arrived in New York, a newspaper man was busily interviewing all of the survivors, and they came to Nellie and they said, "How did you survive? How did you escape during all the chaos?" And she said, "Sir, when all the other girls put their heads down to pray, I made a run for it." So we are not up against a Titanic-level cataclysm, but as we graduate from Gemba, it's our time to make a run for it. So let's go do this. But let's do it with integrity and with balance. And a lot of years ago, I started medical school. This was in 1980. Several of my classmates were, I think, safe to say, not born yet. And at that time, the doctors were the ones who had 24/7 availability. We were on call, the pager, the beeper, the late nights, and the constant obligation. And nowadays, most doctors actually work in group practices and do sort of shift work, And I have sort of a business life, so I straddled the business between medicine and business, that space between medicine and business. And I have an interesting observation that you guys are the ones now, the business guys are the ones now where 24/7 availability is expected, right? Emails and texts and conference calls across 14 time zones. And basically the ethos is, if you're not available, no problem, I'll just call somebody who is. So I was reminded of this in England, in London, when we met with Tom Albanese. And you remember Tom was a great guy, CEO of Rio Tinto, so generous with his time and gave us a lot of great advice in our live case and so on. But I had a chance to visit with Tom after the meeting, after he presented to us. And I said, Tom, how do you do this? Because it was obvious that he was on the road. So he's on the road 32 weeks a year. Okay, it's not higher math to say that there are 52 weeks in a year, and that's a lot of time away. So maybe the most valuable training that we've learned in Gemba is this balance. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that those people in the back of the room, your families and your support system, who have given up so much for the last 18 months, I don't think they're game for this as a lifetime program. So here's where I'm going to use the power and the privilege of the podium and share a little experience and give a little advice. If you guys don't already have it, you'll very soon have every material thing that you need and 90% of what you want. So we're working in the wants here. So what are you willing to sacrifice for the wants? As my wife and 3 kids, sit in the room and watch me give this presentation, I really don't look back on any event, any business deal and said, man, I sure wish I'd committed a lot more time to that. Been away from home a little more, not worked out, eaten badly, just to make a little bit more money. But what would I give just one more time to see my oldest daughter, Camille, who sits there before me, 24 years old now, to win the Napa County Spelling Bee? To sit there as her competitor had that one last vowel that they got wrong and know my daughter was a winner. Twice, by the way. Or what would I give to see my son Nate one more time coach him in his Little League baseball team? He's 22 years old now. I don't get that privilege. Or to watch my middle daughter, Marielle, who just took my picture. She wanted to make sure she wasn't left out. That's her personality, if you know. Play such incredibly determined defense in our junior league basketball team. Never could hit a layup. Or to watch my little daughter, Giovanna, at 10 years old, she's 18 now, ride her horse Scout across our ranch, chasing those poor cows for no good reason. Just one more time to do that. So your special family moments are a lot different, but don't miss them. So I want to thank you very much for giving me a couple of minutes on the podium at this really, really important time. I so admire all of you and the families and friends who have supported you throughout this program. And I know that we will watch each other and see our certain success and accomplishments with the pride of genuine friendship. So thank you again and congratulations.
Thank you, Eric. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce the Dean of the Fuqua School of Business, Phil Boulding.
Eric, thank you for those incredibly poignant remarks. We now have the remarkable privilege of transitioning to our graduation speaker, Mr. Kevin Kelly, who is currently the CEO of Heidrick & Struggles. Kevin is also a 1999 Gemba graduate and a member of our Board of Visitors, so he is deeply connected to Fuqua, much to our benefit. I think there are a couple of things that I want to note about Kevin. One is that he is a true globalist, as we would hope for every graduate of this program. He's someone who's had significant assignments around the world. He's had big roles in Asia, in Africa, the Middle East, and in Europe. And I think those roles led him into the position of CEO. The interesting thing is, as he reflects on his experiences around the world, he made a comment to me about how he lived in Japan for 10 years, and every passing year, he felt like he understood less, which means that he is someone who is truly a lifelong learner because he's in the pursuit of understanding what he does not understand. I think that's incredibly important to have that kind of ambition to constantly learn. So he's a globalist. He's also a disruptor. And my hope for all of you is that you too will be disruptors in the most positive sense of that opportunity. He took a firm in an industry which was built around executive search and was unchanged for about a 55-year period. And he led disruption in that industry to transform his organization around the idea of providing leadership advisory services. And as a consequence, Heidrick & Struggles remains the premier leadership advisory service firm in the world. He is also someone who is passionate about making a difference in the lives of others. He wants to make a difference in the lives of the people in his firm. He wants to make a difference in the lives of his clients. And luckily for us, he wants to make a difference in the lives of those communities in which he participates, and he very actively participates in our community. We actually reached out to Kevin's former classmates and said, could you give us some dirt on Kevin that would make my introduction a little more interesting? And what we found was no one had anything, at least they were willing to share, in terms of what interesting things Kevin might have done while a student. But what they all consistently came back and said is, this is someone who cares about his classmates deeply, who is always available, is still always available for help, advice, consultation. And so with the passing of years, he has remained as connected to his class as he was back in 1999. Now, the interesting thing is we asked Kevin, are you still in touch with your classmates? And he said, yeah, lately a whole bunch of them have been reaching out to me. Well, now you know why. So anyway, we are very, very fortunate to have Kevin come and speak to all of you. And so without further ado, Kevin.
Good morning. Eric, that was fantastic, and you gave me a lot of great memories of sitting here where you are, which I can't believe is 13 years ago. And just a thought that I've had over the course of the last 3 months in thinking of what I wanted to say today. 13 years ago, and the reason Bill couldn't find any dirt is there were no BlackBerries. There was no Facebook. There were no iPhones. So the good news for me is that nothing could be caught on camera. I'm very humbled to be here in front of you. I was very fortunate, I think, to actually get into the program. And it's always great to come back here, and I was thinking of a number of stories along the way. You just mentioned London. I know you all attended London. You went to Dubai. You had the opportunity to go to St. Petersburg. And I was thinking of an opportunity that I had. I had the opportunity to live overseas 15 years, as Bill said, and there was one moment, as you do, when I lived in the UK, that I happened to go into a pub. And as I was walking into the pub, I realized that I forgot my wallet. So I went back out to the car to get my wallet and then went back into the pub. But as I was walking in the door, a waitress was coming out with a tray full of drinks. And so I held the door open for her. at which point she leaned over to me and said, "Thank God somebody around here has manners. There's a bunch of rude Americans inside." Being back, and I'm fortunate, as Bill mentioned, to come back to the campus frequently, and as you were speaking today and watching you walk in, I'll never forget my first day, and I think many of us here in this room will remember the campus tour where I was a little anxious, you're a little nervous, you're going to meet new people for the first time, and you mentioned meeting your classmates. And I remember going out and saying, the tour guide at the time said, you know, this is the business school, and this is the bookstore. And then we got finally to the Duke Chapel, and they said, and this is the Duke Chapel. We're very proud of it. It's amazing. It's the center of campus, and it's 65 years old. At which point, given the global nature of your class, I'm sure you can appreciate this. The guy next to me elbowed me, and he said, 65 years old. He said, my kitchen is older than that. I had the great fortune to reconnect with a lot of our professors this morning, and what was fascinating to me is we were talking about my class and how it, correlated to the class here in front of me, and Alan said that the challenge here is they're a little more boisterous, and I remembered 3 months ago sitting with my 7-year-old, and my 7-year-old said to me, "Dad, are you going on a business trip this week?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, when are you coming back?" And I said, "I'm coming back Friday afternoon." And he said, "In the afternoon or the evening?" And I said, "The afternoon." And he said, "That's fantastic." He goes, "I get to see you." And then he looked at me and he said, "You must be really busy." And I said, "I'm kind of busy. I travel a lot, 70% of the time." And he said, "Dad, how many people are in your company?" And I said, 2,000. And he said, "How do you do it?" And I said, "How do I do what?" He said, "When 2,000 people are raising their hand at the same time, how do you choose who to call on?" And in my conversation with Alan this morning, he said that didn't seem to be an issue in the class that we have here in front of us. But as again, I was reflecting on the comments today, I remember specifically sitting where you are, and what was amazing is I didn't remember who the speaker was. What I remember about sitting where you are today was thinking, wow, this has been a very fast 18 months. Wow, am I going to actually change careers? Part of me entering this program was to think, is this an opportunity for me to do something different now that I've had this great education from Fuqua and this great international experience? Wow, I sure am glad on day 3 that I went to the Durham Bulls game, which probably caused more conflict with my team on the 3rd day of class than we had in the next 18 months. But thank God, again, we had conflict resolution, because in the end of the day, I'm very happy I went to the Durham Bulls game. And am I going to use anything that I've learned over the course of the last 18 months when I go back and spend all of my time, full-time, and attention to working? And by the way, just a word of advice, and it's been very gracious of all of them to thank you out there, but I can tell you, with all of the free time that they're going to have now, you're going to probably want to send them back to get a PhD within the next 6 months, because they're going to be seeing you much more frequently than they have. I'm very fortunate to be here and representing the CEO as CEO of Heidrick & Struggles. And as Bill kindly mentioned, we've been on a very interesting journey with the advent of technologies, Web 2.0 technologies, LinkedIn and Facebook. What used to give us a very distinct advantage as an organization, which was a proprietary database of having great people like you in there, where we understood your background, we understood the number of languages you spoke, we understand your education, that has been completely wiped out. And if you think about disintermediation, and you're CEO of an organization, that's the last thing that you want to have happen to your firm. So we embarked on this journey that led us to not only focusing on the acquisition of talent, which is recruiting, but also development of employees, assessment of employees, succession planning of employees, and retention of employees. And what's fascinating about assessment today, and what's fascinating about the experience that you collectively have had here throughout your travels, is that when we assess individuals in both Europe and the United States, the first question they ask of us is, how do I compare against Bob, who sits down the hallway? Today, what's fascinating, because you've been to Dubai, India, Russia, Africa, China, is when we go out and assess executives today, the first question they ask us is not how they compare to somebody down the hall, but how do they compare against somebody at a GE? Or how do they compare against somebody at a Siemens in Europe? Because that's their market. They're looking now to expand internationally. And again, although sitting here today, you wonder, will I get to use the knowledge and experience that I've had? I can tell you, over the past 13 years, there have been a number of times where I actually get a smile on my face and I say, wow, that experience at Gemba is really paying off. What's amazing about the experience that you've had is if you think about business schools, and I was talking to the faculty this morning, I've had the opportunity over the last 10 years to sit in some of the predominant business schools in Europe and here in the United States. 90% of what you learn in business schools today is focused on marketing, operations, accounting, and 10% on interacting with people. And then when you get out, as you all know from your jobs, and you get into a leadership role, it's the converse. You spend 10% of your time focusing on operations, marketing, etc., accounting, and 90% dealing with people. But the great thing about this experience is from day one, you have had the opportunity to work in teams, work in global teams, and when you wake up, 12 hours later, 18 hours later, depending on how long you sleep, you know that you're going to be connecting with your team, you're going to be interacting, and that's what's critical in today's world. My same son said to me as I walked out the door about 9 months ago, and you'll find later on you get the best material from your children. He said, Dad, he goes, can you do me a favor? Can you actually ask your boss if you can come home early today and watch my football game? As he was eating breakfast, and I looked at him and I said, I am the boss. At which point he looked back at me and he said, really? He said, I thought you were the CEO. And it taught me a lot about leadership, that one lesson there, because in today's world what we find is you can't have this dictatorial style of leadership. And we're seeing this, particularly with this new generation coming through, Generation Y, 1978 to 2005, that are reputed to have 14 jobs by the time they're 38. And what we're finding that historically when it comes to leadership is we used to think that IQ was the critical element when it came to becoming an executive or a CEO in any business across the globe. And then in the late 90s, early 2000s, we came up with the EQ equation, emotional quotient. How do you lead people? How do you bring them along? How do you engage them to make them want to do what you need them to do as employees and actually drive any strategy that you're focused on globally? But coming back to today, the key element we find in leadership, and the number one thing that we're getting asked for as a search firm, leadership advisory firm, is CQ. And when I talk about CQ, it's cultural quotient, which is another great reason that the Duke Gemba program really stands out globally against any business school program that I've seen out there. Because you all have had the ability, you all have had the experiences that will be in high demand going forward because you understand what it's like to navigate through different cultures, to communicate through different cultures, to integrate in different cultures. And that is a key element today across the globe. Bill mentioned I had a 15-year career overseas, and the first 10 of it was in Tokyo. And I happened to grow up in our financial services practice. And there was one particular instance where I was doing a head of Asia Pacific search for Merrill Lynch, who was looking for a global head of restructuring and M&A. And during this 3-month process, I found a candidate who happened at the time to come from Morgan Stanley. And At the time he was going to resign, I decided to do a little role playing that morning with him. So I sat down at breakfast and I said, Watanabe-san, I said, today you are going to resign from your company. They are going to tell you that you're a valued employee. They are going to come back to you with a counteroffer, maybe a promotion. And they're going to tell you you're the most valuable employee they have, and they're going to try to retain you in the organization. So you have to be willing and able to understand that and then have a counter-argument when you resign. So I knew he thought the meeting went well. I knew he was resigning at 3 o'clock that afternoon. And 3:05 goes by, 3:10, 3:15. At 3:30, I call him at his desk, and he answers the phone. And I said, Watanabe-san, how are you? He's like, Kevin-san, I'm great. I said, did you resign? He said, yes, I did. And I said, well, why are you still at your desk? My boss said no. So, another thing I learned in this program is that you need perseverance, and you need that CQ that I talked about to work through it. And so 3 weeks later, because I could never call the global head of Merrill Lynch sitting in New York and tell him that this gentleman's boss said no and therefore he didn't resign, but because I had the experience you all have, I understood it's going to take time, patience, and empathy to get this deal closed. A few years later, 2001, I was asked to take over our Asia Pacific business. And I'm sure you see this in leadership roles. Leadership roles are fantastic for the first 48 hours because all of your colleagues can send you congratulatory emails, your parents are proud, your wife's proud, your partners are proud, and then day 3, you get one of your colleagues that you've worked with for 20 years or 15 years walking up to you and saying, hey, John has 21 ceiling tiles in his office and I only have 20. What are you going to do about it? Day 4 of my experience in Asia Pacific, I got a call that our Korean operation had been closed. So I hopped in an airplane, I flew to Korea, and it looked like a scene from CSI. There was yellow sticky tape, do not enter this building, sitting across the door. So I was reflecting on my business school experience here at Gemba thinking, how am I going to deal with this? Only to find that we had been closed for prostitution. Because the Korean government at that time did not know what a headhunting company did. You know, moving a body from one company to the other, they had the preconceived notion that we were doing something illegal. So when I talk about staying connected to your classmates, it really benefited me at that time to have had a Korean lawyer in my class who really helped us get through that situation. And again, the global nature of that business. 4 years later, I was asked, based on Asia Pacific, to go run our European business by the board of directors. And what was fascinating about that is that Asia Pacific was growing at the time. We had doubled our revenue. You know, India was hot, China was hot. There was other emerging markets that were really growing. And our European business, we hadn't made money for 30 years. And at the time the board asked me, I said, you know, why would you ask me? I'm an American. You know, why would you send an American to a European business to try to turn this around? And then a colleague from my business school class said, hey, Kevin, don't worry. It sounds like if there's one thing you can take for a fact, it's that if you look at the results of your European business, you can't fall off the floor. So that provides you a great opportunity. So what I wanted to emphasize is that your travels, your experience, are all going to lead down the road to having a very successful career and a great group of individuals that you can keep in touch with. Something to think about as you reflect on what you're going to do next, whether it's in your own organization or whether it's outside, is that 40% of senior level executives in organizations don't last 18 months. And it's not because they're not intelligent, it's because there's a huge cultural adjustment when you change jobs after 10, 12, 14 years. Individuals don't give you feedback. You could do something simple like have an email culture versus a voicemail culture. And you could be using voicemail and the constant feedback that you don't receive can come back and hurt you. So as you think about either recruiting, retaining, or actually moving to new organizations, it's something to think about as you progress your career. As the faculty mentioned earlier, you've learned a lot here at this school. And as I've been told through the years, it's what you learn after you know everything that counts. So I think we should all endeavor to keep learning. And there's 3 things I wanted to share with you that we've learned at Heidrick & Struggles in terms of staying in your job. First of all is interest in what you're doing. Again, whether it's marketing, financial services, consulting, technology, etc. Number 2 is compensation. And when I talk about compensation, something to think about is that only 21% of individuals leave for higher compensation. The other 80%, roughly 79%, would leave if they felt lack of appreciation by their boss or their company. The third and the most important is learning. And when I talk about learning, what we see historically is that individuals historically come to us as an organization, and the first thing they do is they blame their company. And they blame their company because they've been doing the same thing for 5 years or 7 years, and they get bored. So they come to us and say, listen, I want an opportunity to do something new. So they move companies, they get a new business card, they get in a new environment, and they find out 6 months later that they're doing the exact same thing. So the advice I have is make sure that you continue on that learning curve, because I've made mistakes throughout my career where I had this conversation with a number of investment bankers. One of them came to me and said, I'm bored with investment banking. I'd really love to be a philosopher. And I said, then you should follow your dreams. 24 hours later, I got an angry call from his wife saying, I don't think there's as much money in philosophy as there is in investment banking, but you still have to endeavor to learn going forward. And finally, what I would say is that as you go out, don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to take on that new opportunity in a business unit. Don't be afraid to take a risk and go out and enter a new market. Don't be afraid to be the one who challenges the status quo in your organization, because that's going to make you a very successful person going forward. Lastly, as Eric said, I think one of the other critical things is really to value those around you, including your family. And I'll close with a story that many of you may know, but it's about Bob Marley. And Bob Marley was giving a concert at a peace rally in Kingston, Jamaica. And 2 days before the peace rally, the police actually shot he and his band up. But 2 days later, he actually went on stage and gave the concert. So when the concert was over, one of the interviewers came up and said, how could you do that? I mean, how could you get shot up by the police, be injured, have half your band injured, and 2 days later go out and give this concert? To which he replied, it's quite simple. The bad guys don't take any time off, and neither can we. We need to lighten up the darkness. So I'd like to say congratulations to all of you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day and a very fulfilling career and family life. And I hope that we can all collectively go out and lighten up the darkness. Thank you very much.
Kevin, thank you so much for being one of the good guys and for working so hard on behalf of all of us to make sure that the human condition goes from good to better rather than bad to worse. I think you can all see why we think of Kevin as a true global leader of consequence. And if I could give you a small gift of our appreciation.
At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Fuqua Scholars from the Global Executive Class of 2012. For 15 months, each of these students worked hard in a very challenging environment, and the successful completion of the MBA is an outstanding accomplishment. Each member of this class has balanced this program with a full-time position and a personal and family life. Today, we want to honor those who have not only completed the Global Executive MBA program, but have distinguished themselves in their academic achievement. Fuqua Scholars are those students who graduate in the top 10% of their class. As we consider the quality of all of the members of this class, we can also reflect on the outstanding achievement of being designated a Fuqua Scholar. I'll read the names of the Fuqua Scholars alphabetically, and I would ask that as I read each name, that person stand in his or her place. I also would ask the audience to please wait until we've read all of the names before indicating your support and congratulations. That will help us make sure that all of the names can be heard. I should note that this year's Fuqua Scholars asked me specifically to express their gratitude to their team members for their support throughout this program. The Global Executive MBA class of 2012 Fuqua Scholars are Hari Garwal, Gregory Noble Harwell, Richard D. Howe, Benson Shihan Shu, and Brian Michael Lawton. Please join me in congratulating the Fuqua Scholars for this outstanding achievement. And now it's time to individually recognize each of our graduates. Today we ask each of our graduates to come forward and be recognized and congratulated by Dean Boulding, Kevin Kelly, Jennifer Francis, Alan Lind, Daewoo Perawit, myself, and the entire assembly gathered here today. This time I'd like to ask Karen Courtney, Assistant Dean of Executive MBA Programs, to come forward and read the names of the graduates. We're going to ask the graduates to file up to the stage on your left, and as your name is called, please accept your scroll and our congratulations. Now, a moment ago, I asked you to please refrain from showing your support for the Fuqua Scholars until all of the names were read. I want to point out that this part of the ceremony is quite different. This is a very special moment. I encourage you all to cheer for our graduates and show your joy and your support. Many of you in the audience will want to capture this moment. If you do come forward to take a picture, please help by not blocking the movement of the students as they move on to or off of the stage.
Eric Grigsby.
I suppose I should come up now.
Yes, you should.
Okay, thank you.
Todd James Watterson. Cassandra Shepard. Catherine Buffman McLeod. Jung Min Agarwal. Shelby Dean Amin. Oksana Anasenko. Konstantin Bibichkov. Ryan Bieneman. Michael Calfee. Scott David Chapman. Ronnie Chase. Andrew Thomas Clark. Romulo Colindres. Colin Daigle. Anthony Delco. Tatiana Devoria Dakina. John Philip Farley. Zhen Yu Feng. Kirill Galavanov. Gregory Noble Harwell. Julio Herrera. Brody Holbrook. Richard Howe. Benson Shu. Saurabh Jain. Ivan Kapustin. Afsal Kolfe. Olga Komleva. Wilson Lai. Asa Lakshmi Narasimhan. Brian Michael Lawton. Hyun Uk Lim. Paulo Manca. Elena Nikitina. Fabio Nunes dos Santos. Andre Pujadas. Luis Rengel. Thomas Carlton Rich. Mary Frances Roca. Mikhail Romanov. Mark Adam Rosner. Thomas Schubert. Melissa Seymour. Jana Shagai. Rajiv Singh. Christine Toms. Jenna Venturi. And I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge one of your classmates that was unable to be at graduation today, Hari Garwal.
Okay, we're getting pretty close here. So I just want to thank a few people. I want to thank Eric and Kevin for their fantastic remarks. I want to repeat my thanks to our faculty for doing a spectacular job, the staff for being amazing, and for all the people that are here in the audience, the friends and families supporting the people in the front, thank you so much for what you did. But if I could now speak to the graduates, and if you would all rise. The first order of business is if everybody could please join me in congratulating the Global Executive MBA class of 2012. Okay, so a few, oh, what was that? Okay, so a few things that I'd like to say directly to the graduating class. The first one is thank you. The highest mark of leadership is to come into a community, come into an organization, and leave it in better shape than when you arrived. And all of you have done that. You have made us better, you've made us stronger, you've made us more interesting, and as a result, we are far richer for having had you be a part of the Global Executive Program, and I can't thank you enough for what you've done in terms of your contributions. Having thanked you, I'd like to now ask some favors of you, or make some requests. The first request is stay in touch with each other. If you think about what's in this room, what's residing in terms of the intelligence, the IQ, the emotional intelligence, the EQ, and the cultural intelligence, the CQ, you have it in abundance among your class. Make sure that you take advantage of that in the years that follow. This is a network that will benefit you for the rest of your life. The second request I have of you is please stay in touch with us. As you reflect on the people who have given back to you during your experience, those are people who are members of our community who have chosen to give back to those that follow. And they're the ones who've made a richer experience for all of you, and I would hope that all of you will in turn stay engaged and make a point of talking to future prospective students, talking to current students, talking to alumni, and generally engaging in ways that multiplies the power of this network that you are a member of. The next request I have is please make a difference in the lives of others. As you think about what's in front of you, we all have a responsibility to make sure that we're able to do things that generate value for organizations, that generate value for our customers, that generate value for stakeholders, for families, communities. That is our higher purpose, is to make a difference in the world. And I ask all of you to take that obligation very seriously. And the last thing that I ask of you is please take time to thank the people who in turn have made a difference in your lives. That includes all the people in the room here who have supported you as you've gone through this experience, and many people outside of this room who have made it possible for you to undergo this transformational experience. So please take a moment to recognize that there are other people out there who too have a sense of purpose in making a difference in your lives. So with that, if I could ask the members of the audience to please remain seated until the faculty, staff, and students have all processed out, and then please join me for the fun that follows. So thank you all so much.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.